8 knockouts, 5 submissions, 12 decisions. Just how good is Mateusz Gamrot? The lightweight division in the UFC is currently moving at a snail's pace, mainly due to a lot of guys thinking they deserve a shot at Ilia Topuria. But few stand on business and show up like the gamer himself. Unironically, maybe the most ducked fighter at 155 is Mateusz Gamrot, a Polish heart of gold and a proud representative of the infamous double punch. 155 is full of these rapper fighters, as Jorge Masvidal would call them, who love to talk, take time off, and beg for the champion. Gimme Gamer, calling out everybody, standing on business, win over Tsarukyan, let him cook. Gamrot is a heavy pressure wrestler who is low aura at times, but has such a deep bag of tools that I favor him in almost every matchup. And I think he's closer to a title than a lot of people realize, the way he calls out literally everybody on a weekly basis. But they don't pick up the phone because they know his fight style is gas. Polish-born Mateusz Gamrot was the KSW featherweight and lightweight champion before making the leap to the UFC, where he started training with names such as Dustin Poirier at American Top Team. Gamrot has had some amazing displays of domination, but also a few squeaky decisions that definitely took away some of his aura. But we must look past his god-awful Dariush performance and look at the actual proof. His resume is incredibly underrated, and I swear 95% of the fanbase are completely unaware of his KSW achievements. His resume includes a handful of crafty veterans, young prospects on momentum, which he stole from them, and the most valuable in the entire division, current #1 contender Arman Tsarukyan. But it's important for us to see how he's getting these wins. His wood chipper style of heavy wrestling pressure yet low damage striking often leads to possible robbery scenarios, which is always cause for concern. So his career and fight style we will get into, but as for the gamer himself, he's a heart of gold. A championship level competitor who always shows respect and is always good on the mic. I don't know, maybe it's just a Polish thing. Shout out to the Polskis out there. I'm sure some fans out there think he's a boring wrestler by default, but they just couldn't be more wrong. And yes, the Jalen Turner fight gets a pass. If I was up against a weight bully, I would wet blanket them too. Gamrot has been that lightweight dark horse for a long time. Split decision losses aren't enough for me to switch up on this man. I believe he can mix it up with the best in the world. So it's a no-brainer that Gamer has what it takes to take titles. But is the decision to fight Charles Oliveira on 2 weeks' notice a wise one? Only time will tell, so let's get ahead of the curve and find out what his game is all about. Mateusz Gamrot, a chaotic chain wrestler with an unwavering will and championship-level gas tank. Strike accuracy, 52%, strikes landed per minute, 3.3. I really wish the UFC would separate standing strikes and strikes thrown while in the clinch or grounded, because sometimes we don't know if a fighter is whiffing on the feet and only accurate while they pepper their opponent while wrestling. Strikes absorbed per minute is 3. Takedown average, 5.3. Fucking insane. Sort of as you go up the weight classes, you see less and less of this Marab style of spam shooting, as it requires an immense gas tank. Like, the cardio for this shit is just unbelievable. But Gamrot used to be a former featherweight, and he's not the biggest lightweight, so it comes to no surprise. Takedown accuracy, 37%. Strike defense of 59%. Takedown defense, 91%. Top tier defensive stats, backed up by his control time. Once Gamer gets going, it's very hard to get him off you, and he spends large portions of the fight cooking his foe down and avoiding punishment altogether. He has been dropped, but never finished before in his career, and has scary good recovery. Knockdown average of 0.1, a familiar number for wrestlers with no hands. Average fight time, 12 minutes, 32 seconds. Strengths, sneaky takedowns, positional control, very reliable takedown defense. Gamrot wins when he can land intelligent takedown entries to begin his wrestling flow. He's never urgent for a single position, but rather works hard in whatever spot he finds himself in. He's taken some of the sport's best grapplers and tuckered them out, denied all of their own grappling efforts, and ran away with decisions. Weaknesses, slimy stand-up, shaky chin, small for 155. Gamrot's career began at featherweight, and sometimes he can't get the respect in stand-up exchanges. He lacks a good thud in his shots, and I've seen him get bonked and wobbled by some pretty average strikers. It's not that he has a bad defense or flaws in his style, it's just he's on the smaller side in the 155-pound weight class. Best performance, sneaking one over on Arman Tsarukyan. Called a robbery by many, this is still to this day one of the more controversial decisions in MMA history. There are hidden layers to this fight that nobody talks about. A fight where Gamrot was rightfully rewarded by the judges for winning the grappling battle exclusively. Another interesting stat of note is that Gamrot was outstruck every single round, but landed more punches to Arman's head every round. Further proving that judges value head strikes, they come from boxing, they still don't know MMA even after 2 decades. Gamrot was the far more accurate striker in this matchup, as Arman actually did a lot of this Macy Barber airboxing that made him lose optically. Arman was credited with a single takedown in the entire fight, and Gamrot Granby rolled it within seconds. As the fight went on, Arman would constantly land his body kick well, but Gamrot would catch it and always threaten a takedown off it. Gamrot's slimy boxing looked ineffective, but he was the one landing, whereas Arman would back up to the cage and fail to land his own. Arman would shoot every round, but he'd be met with a hard sprawl, having his head pushed down to the mat and peppered by Gamer. Arman's stand-up is quite beginner level. I know he's starched Dariush, don't get me wrong, but in extended fights, his boxing has never actually been his strong suit, and I actually think it's his weakness. So Gamrot squeaked his way through the early rounds and pulled ahead late. So in an extremely difficult to score fight, the judges sided with Gamrot's ability to reverse the wrestling, exhaust Tsarukyan, and low-key win the boxing exchanges. Gamrot showed in this fight to be hardwired to go 5 rounds and where his skill set shines the best. But who actually won? I can understand why the judges went the way they did, punishing Arman for slowing down, and upon further analysis, he actually did miss almost all of his punches, and the body kicks were overrated. Like, I get it, they made a loud slapping noise and they echoed through the almighty Apex facility, but Gamrot didn't react to a single one. Most fun, his war with Dan Hooker. Hooker has always been long, tall, and boasting one of the more intimidating frames at 155, and Gamrot ran into a lot of issues here. Early on, Hooker got ahead on strike numbers with the front and oblique kick, as well as constantly feinting something up the middle to discourage takedowns. Gamrot still got his takedown, but wasn't able to grapple as Dan was way too big for him and was able to scoot all the way back to the cage and get up. Dan flipped the script and plastered Gamer with a flurry of punches and badly rocked him. And Dan isn't even the biggest power puncher, but this flurry had Gamrot in serious trouble. I thought this was like a minor slip knockdown, but after rewatching the fight, Gamrot was really hurt by it and just couldn't shrug it off. He began panic shooting from here on out, and he became way too predictable from this point forward. We've seen Gamrot hardly breathing after about 20 minutes with Arman Tsarukyan, but 5 minutes with Hooker, and we've got some very concerning body language during the break. Gamrot, again, got takedowns, but Dan had traps already set for him that allowed him to escape. Gamrot was able to drop Dan with this phantom double punch and cause cuts to open up on his face, but it was to no avail. Hooker honestly thrives best in fights where he just gets beat to shit and rallies back late, so this almost got Gamrot the decision, the visible damage argument, but still wasn't enough. Dan was the first striker to shut down Gamrot, and it was still a fairly close fight, but by hurting Gamer early, then laying traps for the grappling, he was able to create a messier stand-up fight where Gamrot absolutely doesn't do his best work. Sad decision to see. I remember feeling really bad for Gamrot here, but we all love both of these guys, and I do think it was the correct decision. Upcoming matchup, Charles Oliveira. Now, if we apply the forbidden MMA math, Gamrot was able to pull ahead of Arman, who was able to push through Oliveira at UFC 300. But Oliveira has a different fight style entirely. He's down to die. Where Arman circles, throws kicks at range, pussies out, prioritizes wrestling, Charles Oliveira looks to exchange, take risk, and force you into danger. Gamrot has some options here, but as a whole, he's put himself in a very high-risk, high-reward situation here. A victory by finish, or even stinky domination, will give him even more bargaining power over other lightweights and shoot him up to maybe number 3 or number 4 in the rankings. The UFC and Dana love money, so we'll always push for Pimblett to rise up to the title first, but Gamrot is slowly building the best resume at lightweight and will soon be undeniable, should he get this victory. So how does he win? Gamrot will win if he can stay ultra-disciplined in all positions, as Oliveira is the type of guy to jump submissions and non-stop attack you. Gamrot needs to push for damage and avoid trying to out-technique Oliveira. That's where others have struggled in the past. The path to beating Oliveira has always been simple. Simply bonk and be good enough to not let him recover and get wrapped up in the grappling game. I think Gamrot can do that, but we are in for a very interesting fight. Oliveira is massively loved by the fan base, but it's time we ask some hard questions. Brain-dead game plan against Topuria. Going 25 minutes with Michael Chandler was not giving us anything to write home about. Does he really have another run in him? I don't think so. It's not going to be as easy as 2021. Lightweight is a little different now, I'm afraid. But he's Oliveira, so he's got a good shot. Gamrot isn't a power puncher outside of the double punch from hell that would sleep anyone. So this fight will tell us a lot about where both guys are going from here. I love me some Dubronx, but I think it's about time to start having that conversation. As always, thank you guys for watching. Drop your favorite Gamrot moment down below.